Okay, so as you see, I poked a hole in the middle of that padding so the crank can be attached. And as you can see, I opened up the grippers a little more so the headliner can go through. Make sure your hands are clean at this point, and make sure you're working on a clean surface. The strip from the square section of the headliner is going to go into those teeth. Now you can actually do this on the car as well. Some people like to do that, but I'm doing it here on the table. Just a little bit easier, I guess, to show you. Make sure that strip is all the way in, and that those grippers, once they're clamped down, will cover it completely. And then again, with just a rubber mallet, you can start tapping it down. Just go slow. Make sure that mallet is clean again. This is mohair, and once it's soiled, you gotta have to clean it. If you do soil your headliner, baby wipes is one of the best ways to clean it. Just keep feeling the grippers, and as you can see, it's getting pounded down to hold that strip in place. Well, now that that's even, you got to make sure it's even on both sides, and when you tug it, it should be nice and tight. Now we're going to have to cut a hole for that the shaft to go through that attaches the latch, attaches the handle rather. Make sure when you cut it, when you pull it tight, just cut it a little bit ahead of the shaft, because once the headliner is free, it'll move backwards. You don't want to cut it right on top of the shaft, because once you tighten it and let go, the hole might be visible, and you don't want to see that. So, and then here's your spring and collar. Just press that down, and then there's your handle. And again, you're going to need that little pin to hold the handle down. So basically, you press down the collar, and there's a hole in the handle that has to be hammered through with the pin, and basically that's what holds the handle on. In these early years, that's exactly the way the door handles work as well, for the window crank and the door opener. And then you test it out, and that's it. Now we have the front part of the headliner done on the square section. Now again, you got to leave those back small rail pieces off in order to slide the mechanism on. Just line up the rollers. The big round rollers will actually go into the track, and then the little nylon rollers will go under the track, as you can see here. Just make sure you want to slide it back and forth to see how movable it is. It should move freely back and forth. So what we're going to do here is now attach the front part of the mechanism. Take a peek, make sure everything's straight and everything looks good. Now we're going to slide the rear bow on. And again, slide that back and forth to make sure it moves freely. You might want to put just a little Vaseline in there in the track so it moves a little bit better, but for the most part, just you should be able to move it freely without a problem. Now here I'm putting on the end of the bows some of that spongy material that we put on the front header, because I'll show you that in a second while we're doing that. Now I'm going to add some glue to the bow. Again, dry on dry, just like the headliner. Now here's the pockets, the little felt material that comes on the headliner. It's usually split by TMI. Now naturally, some people will want to glue the felt material to the bottom where it's sewn. I don't recommend doing that. I like to glue it just to the top of the felt material, just so the split in the felt is at the top of the bow. And I'll show you why. Because when you go up too high, that means when the headliner is pulled tight, you'll see later on that it's then not even with the headliner around it, and it tracks upward, and it looks like then you have some pockets, and you don't want that. So you want this to be at the top of the felt here. So at this section, sometimes that bar that comes across, you might just have to cut the felt so it goes around it. This is what I mean. You need the split of the felt on the very top of the bow. That's the way you want it, not at the sewn section. Some people I see always glue it and wrap it around real tight around the sewn section. Now just make sure you're even all the way across. It's very crucial that you're even here, because if you're not, the center section is going to look off. And now I'm doing it to the rear section. And make sure you save your bows from when you did the tear down. You're going to need those bows to go in there. If you don't have the bows, you can always use brazen rod that they sell at a hardware store. It's very similar to the bow material. And what I'm doing here is I'm actually gluing the end of the rod and then putting it into the pocket so that it never slides out. Now here's where it's crucial, and this is what I mean when you wanted to, where you wanted to glue it. See, as I pull it, it gets even and it comes down level with the edge of the headliner there. If you would have glued it to the sewn lace, you would have saw a huge upward pocket there, a huge space, a gap. Now you can attach the rear rails, tighten them down. Now here's the front section of the bow that's going to be going into your ragtop material. Now you can use rubber cement here or the spray glue. Just make sure it's a strong spray glue. You don't want to use something that's wimpy here, because remember, this ragtop material, once it's locked into the front part of the car, it's going to pull tight. Sometimes you might want to have the ragtop material sitting out in the sun for a little while, so it's has a little bit of stretch to it, so you can work it. And what you want to do here is push it into the front pocket. Now you get your, I'm using contact cement here. Again, just like the spray glue, you want to do it dry on dry, and use a liberal amount here, and just basically use a bunch. And you want to wait till it sets up to get tacky and dry, and then you apply the material to the bow. So do it on both sides. The inside of the material, just liberally put it on. And some of these brushes that I use, I mean, these are brushes you're going to toss out. They're not going to be safe. So I usually go to the dollar store and pick up some paint brushes. Alright, now when you put it into the pocket, this is crucial here too. You want to pull as tight as you can and start pressing it down, of course, with your hand, and getting it into shape. Pull it nice and tight. And the one thing you want to do here is on the front lace here. See where I'm pointing? You want to pull that downward, not up, because you're gonna want that to stay nice and flush with the top of the car when it gets locked. Too many times I see people put the bow in the pocket, and then when they lock the mechanism down, that lace is upward and it looks silly. You don't want it to be pointing upward in any way. You want that to be nice and straight on the bow. Actually, I force it down a little bit, because once it gets pressed down on top of the car, it will move up a bit. So you're better off, having it hooked down a bit more than up. And then the rear bow is pretty self-explanatory. Basically from late 56 to 63, they had threads that poke through the rear pocket. Some early 56 BuGs had a square rear section of the Ragtop material. 56 was kind of like a strange year. They had some different sizes of the headliner of the Ragtop material, and some of the companies only sell one size of the Ragtop material. Wolfsburg West actually sells the correct size, so look at your VIN to be sure if you have it the right material. But mostly through mid 56 and onward, it's pretty much the same, just like you see here. Just glue it on, and again, poke those threads through, and those are going to go through the holes on the back portion of the roof of the car. This is why I put those spongy materials on those bows. They're going to go into the pockets on the headliner, on the Ragtop material. So first I start on one side, the rear, and poke it through. Then I go on the opposite side of the car and I alternate, and then put it through. Now I cross and go on the opposite side of the car again, and then do the front. The middle section is last. And you want to go opposite each time, because if you do all one side at one time, it's very difficult to get them in the pockets on the other side of the car. So you want to crisscross, basically. Pull that and put those threads through the holes, just for now, just to line it up. And once you might need a partner to help hold it down. Now you can see those holes are kind of slotted. And I'm going to talk to you about this in a second. That means there's an adjustment. So now we're going to put the front bow onto the mechanism. Make sure it's lined up. It's basically just a shaft that vertically goes down into a, I guess, another shaft to line it up, like a track almost. Here's that pin that I was telling you about that you got to save. Most of the VW shops out there should have these pins if you did lose one. We're going to insert it here. Sometimes a little finagling is needed to get it in. Sometimes the hole just doesn't line up, but you keep working it and you'll get it in there. And then you need a short stubby screwdriver to just kind of basically reach in there and tighten it up. Now in the rear section, you have to tighten those down. But you need that bar. Remember that bar that I told you about in the lip, the L lip that's on that bar faces is towards the back of the car, as you can see. I don't even know why it's L. There's an L on, like an L bend in that bar. That doesn't really make much sense to me, but it is. So tighten those down. You don't have to go super tight yet, because you might want to adjust the top if it's too loose and you see pockets like you're going to see here. So I'm going to tighten this down, and it's pretty tight, but see the front section is up a bit. Now you can adjust that.